Biden 2024 was trending on Twitter this last weekend, but not for the reasons that the current president would probably want. It seems that there's an increasing number of folks on the left that are willing to acknowledge now publicly what the rest of us have been saying for quite some time, that regardless of your feelings about the previous guy, the current one is simply not up for the job.
Will you support him?
If the president has a vision, and that's something certainly we're all willing to entertain and examine when the time comes.
That's not a yes.
Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting that a majority of progressives are now willing to agree with conservatives that President Biden is to blame for the various crises that are currently facing the country. The left looks at the tragically botched Afghanistan withdrawal and says, well, Trump left him in a no-win situation and there would have been a disaster there regardless. They evaluate the ongoing crisis at the southern border and say, well, at least kids aren't still being locked in cages and things are better than they were. They observe the failure of Biden to put an end to COVID-19 as promised, and they say, well, come on, it's a disease. What can a president do? They look at the rampant inflation and say, well, it's really high in Canada too, so Biden's not to blame. They feel the record gas prices at the pumps themselves, but they also convince themselves that, well, it's all because Putin is a madman and the oil companies are really greedy. They hear about the baby formula shortage and they argue, well, the president of the United States can't possibly be held responsible for something like that. They witnessed the same embarrassing statements on a world stage that the White House itself has to later contradict and clarify, and they just blame it on a stutter or a silly gaffe or on a right-wing narrative manipulation. No, they don't blame Biden for the problems, but here's what they also know. They know that politics is driven by perception, and you cannot have record-high gas prices with a president who is on record saying this.
No more subsidies for fossil fuel industry, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
You can't have a baby formula shortage with a president that appears utterly clueless. You can't have a guy go for a softball interview with a sympathetic, sycophantic late-night comedian, all with the expressed purpose of reviving a faltering image, and then deliver a performance like this that is so uncomfortable that your ally who's asking the questions has to save you by cutting to a commercial.
But here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have even with notable exceptions, even the really good reporters, they have to get the number of clicks on nightly news. Mm-hmm. So instead of asking a question, anyway, it just everything gets sensationalized in ways that. But I'm convinced we can get through this. We have to get through it. And one of the things, look.
I'm going to take a break, and then we'll talk a little bit more, if you don't
blame
mind.
you.
I'm sorry. We have some of those commercials.
This just isn't marketable for the Democrats in 2024, which is why their official publication, the New York Times, is saying it. Should Biden run in 2024? Democratic whispers of no start to rise. Keep your eyes open, because if this continues...
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to... Anyway.
Those whispers are soon going to become shouts.